The wedding I paid for but wasn't invited to. I've always been the odd one out in my family. While they went to prestigious universities and landed corporate jobs with fancy titles, I took a different path. I dropped out of college to start my own business, and let's just say the family didn't approve. Too risky, they said. Get a real job, they insisted. But I stuck with it, and 20 years later, my construction and property maintenance company is thriving. I'm not showing off, but I've done well for myself, very well. My sister Emily, on the other hand, followed the proper path. She married a banking executive, lives in a gated community, and never misses an opportunity to remind everyone of her family's social standing. Over the years, we've maintained a cordial but distant relationship. I see her at holidays and family gatherings, but there's always this unspoken judgment hanging in the air. Despite our differences, I've always had a soft spot for her daughter, my niece Sophia. When she was little, I was a fun uncle who took her fishing and taught her how to change a tire, practical skills her parents deemed unnecessary. As she grew older, we remained close, and I made sure she knew she could always count on me. 6 months ago, Sophia called me, bubbling with excitement. She was engaged to her college sweetheart, Thomas, and they were planning a wedding for the fall. Uncle Jack, I'm so happy. Thomas proposed last night, and I just had to tell you. She gushed over the phone. I was genuinely thrilled for her. Thomas seemed like a good kid from the few times I'd met him. Hard-working, respectful, and clearly in love with my niece. That's wonderful news, kiddo. I'm really happy for you both. I replied, smiling at her infectious enthusiasm. Then came the awkward part. So, we're starting to look at venues, and oh my God, Uncle Jack, everything is so expensive. Mom and Dad said they'd help, but even with their contribution, we're looking at cutting a lot of corners or waiting another year to save up. I could hear the disappointment in her voice. I knew my sister and her husband lived comfortably, but I also knew they were big on appearances. The kind of people who'd rather have a smaller, tasteful wedding than admit they couldn't afford the extravagant event they wanted for their daughter. How much are we talking about here? I asked. Sophia hesitated before answering. The venue we love is $30,000 just for the space, and then there's catering, flowers, the dress. I cut her off. Sophia, I want to pay for your wedding. The whole thing. Consider it my gift to you and Thomas. The silence on the other end of the line was so long, I thought we'd lost connection. Uncle Jack, that's too much. We couldn't possibly accept that, she finally said, her voice cracking. You absolutely can. I've been saving for something special, and what's more special than my only niece's wedding? Just promise me one thing. Have the wedding you want, not the one your parents think you should have. After some persuasion and a few happy tears from both of us, though I'll never admit it, Sophia accepted my offer. We agreed to keep the arrangement between us for now. I transferred the money to her account directly, and she could tell her parents whatever she wanted about how they were financing the event. Over the next few months, Sophia kept me updated on the wedding plans. They'd booked a beautiful vineyard in Napa Valley, hired a renowned chef for the catering, and found a designer dress that made her feel like a princess. Every time she shared a new detail, her excitement was palpable, and it made every penny worth it. All in all, I'd transferred about $120,000 to her account, enough for the wedding of her dreams with some left over for a honeymoon in Italy. Throughout this process, I noticed something odd. Whenever I asked about the guest list or mentioned looking forward to the big day, Sophia would change the subject or become vague. At first, I chalked it up to wedding stress, but as the date approached, I couldn't ignore it anymore. 4 weeks before the wedding, I called her directly. Sophia, I need to ask you something straight up. Am I invited to your wedding? Her long pause told me everything before she even spoke. Uncle Jack, I I don't know how to say this. Thomas's family is very traditional and, well, they're all doctors and lawyers and professors. When Mom told them about you, that you work in construction and didn't go to college, they said they didn't want someone like that at their son's wedding. And Mom agreed it might be awkward. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, not because of Thomas's snobber family. I couldn't care less what they thought of me, but because my own sister had thrown me under the bus and Sophia hadn't stood up for me. I see, I said, keeping my voice steady. And what do you think about all this, Sophia? I try to explain that you're successful and that none of that stuff matters. But Thomas's parents were adamant, and Mom kept saying we should respect their wishes since they are elders. Her voice trailed off weakly. Let me get this straight, I said, my temper rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I'm paying for this entire wedding, but I'm not good enough to attend because I don't have fancy degrees hanging on my wall. Uncle Jack, please understand. No, Sophia, you need to understand something. I've never cared about titles or status. I've built my business from nothing, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. More importantly, I thought I'd raise you to value people for who they are, not what they do for a living or what letters come after their name. I do value you. I'm so grateful for everything. Grateful enough to let your fiancé's family and your own mother exclude me from your wedding? The wedding I'm paying for. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. I need some time to think about this. I finally said, I'll call you back. I hung up and took a long walk to clear my head. By the time I returned home, I'd made my decision. I called my bank and my credit card companies and made some arrangements. Then I sent Sophia a text. I've thought about our conversation. If this is what you want, I won't stand in your way. Enjoy your wedding. Uncle Jack. The day of the wedding arrived. A beautiful Saturday in September. I spent it working on my boat, deliberately keeping my phone off until evening. When I finally checked around 8 p.m., I had 47 missed calls and dozens of text messages. Most were from Sophia and Emily, but there were also several from numbers I didn't recognize. I started with the voicemails. First was Sophia, frantic and crying, Uncle Jack, something's wrong with the payments. The venue manager says your credit card was declined, and they're threatening to shut everything down. Please call me back immediately. Next, my sister, her voice tight with anger. Jack, what the hell are you playing at? Fix this right now. The Andersons are mortified, and Sophia is hysterical. The messages got increasingly desperate as the day went on. Apparently, when the venue tried to process the final payment, they discovered that I had placed a hold on my credit card. Not only that, but when they tried to charge the backup card Sophia had provided, which was also mine, it was declined as well. According to the venue's contract, if final payment was received 24 hours before the event, they reserved the right to cancel. By early afternoon, things had escalated. The florist and caterer, who hadn't received their final payments either, started removing their setups. The wedding coordinator was in a panic, and Thomas's parents were apparently beside themselves with embarrassment. The last voicemail was from Thomas's father, a man I'd never even met. Listen here, you vindictive lowlife. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you've ruined my son's wedding and humiliated our entire family. We'll be taking legal action for this sabotage. I chuckled at that one. Good luck taking legal action against someone for not giving you free money. I waited until the next morning to call Sophia back. She answered on the first ring. Uncle Jack. Oh my God, why didn't you answer? It was a disaster. They started taking everything away. The flowers, the food, even the chairs. Thomas's parents had to call in favors and use their emergency fund to pay for a last-minute wedding at Thomas's aunt's house. It was nothing like what we planned. That's unfortunate, I said calmly, but I'm confused. Why would you expect me to pay for a wedding I wasn't even invited to? But, but you said it was a gift. You can't just take back a gift. I offered to pay for a wedding I assumed I'd be attending as a guest, as your beloved uncle. When I found out I wasn't welcome because I don't fit into your fiancé's family's narrow definition of success, I reconsidered my generosity. You did this on purpose to humiliate us, she accused, her voice breaking. No, Sophia, you did this to yourselves. You chose status over family. You chose to exclude the person who was willing to give you everything without asking for anything in return, except maybe a seat at the ceremony and a dance at the reception. Mom was right about you. You've always been jealous of their success, and now you've shown your true colors. That stung, I won't lie, but it also confirmed I'd made the right decision. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said. For what it's worth, I hope you and Thomas have a happy life together. But I think it's best if we don't speak for a while. I hung up and blocked her number, along with my sisters and the unknown numbers that had been calling me. The fallout was immediate and extensive. My sister rallied the entire extended family against me, telling everyone how I'd sabotaged Sophia's wedding out of spite. Most of them took her side without even hearing mine. Social media posts appeared to cry my cruelty and jealousy, though they carefully avoided mentioning why I might have been upset in the first place. Thomas's father, true to his word, had his lawyer send me a threatening letter demanding I reimburse them for all wedding expenses plus damages for emotional distress. My lawyer responded with a simple letter explaining that there was no contract, verbal or written, obligating me to pay for the wedding, particularly after I was explicitly unwelcome at the event. We never heard from them again. For about 3 months, the drama continued. I lost touch with most of my family, which honestly wasn't much of a loss considering how quickly they'd turned on me. I focused on my business and my friends, the people who knew my true character and stood by me. Then, 6 months after the wedding fiasco, I received an unexpected email from Thomas. Mr. Riley, you don't know me well, but I'm writing to apologize for what happened with our wedding. After spending more time with Sophia's family, particularly her mother, I've begun to understand the family dynamics at play. My parents were wrong to exclude you based on your occupation, and I was wrong to allow it. More importantly, Sophia was wrong not to stand up for you after everything you'd done for us. I wanted you to know that this situation has caused significant strain in our new marriage. Sophia regrets her actions deeply, but is too ashamed to reach out. My parents continue to insist they did nothing wrong, which has resulted in my distancing myself from them as well. I don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation, but I thought you deserved to know that your response to our behavior, while painful at the time, has forced us all to examine our values and priorities. Some of us are learning and growing from it. Respectfully, Thomas Anderson. I sat with that email for a few days before responding. Thomas, thank you for your email. It couldn't have been easy to write, and I appreciate your honesty and maturity. While I can't say I'm ready to forgive and forget, I do believe in second chances when people demonstrate genuine remorse and understanding. If Sophia would like to talk, I'm willing to listen. No promises beyond that. As for your parents, please let them know their legal threats were both misguided and unnecessary. The money I had set aside for the wedding has been donated to a scholarship fund for trade school students. People who choose practical skills over traditional academia, but are no less worthy of respect and opportunity. Best regards, Jack Riley. 2 weeks later, Sophia called from a new number. Our conversation was awkward and tearful, but it was a start. She apologized profusely and admitted she betrayed her own values by going along with the exclusion. I told her I was still hurt, but willing to work on rebuilding our relationship slowly. Meanwhile, my sister Emily remained unrepentant. According to Sophia, She was furious that Thomas and Sophia were speaking to me again and had threatened to cut them off if they continued. Instead of being intimidated, they'd responded by moving across the country for Thomas's new job, conveniently far from both sets of parents. As for me, life has never been better. The wedding incident, while painful, was clarifying. It showed me who truly valued me and who merely tolerated me when it was convenient. I've deepened my friendships, expanded my business, and even started dating again after years of focusing solely on work. The scholarship fund I mentioned to Thomas isn't just a one-time donation. I've established it as a permanent foundation that provides full rides to trade schools for promising students who, like me, might not fit the traditional mold but have the drive and talent to succeed. The first class of Riley Scholars graduates next spring, and I couldn't be prouder. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. While Emily and the Andersons are still nursing their wounded pride and empty bank accounts, I'm building a legacy that will help others forge their own paths to success, regardless of whether they have fancy degrees or prestigious titles. Last month, Sophia and Thomas visited me in person for the first time since the wedding. They brought photos of their new home, a modest but charming house they bought without family help. Sophia had left her corporate job to start a small business of her own, inspired in part by my example. Thomas had taken a position at a community health clinic rather than joining his father's private practice. We're happier with less, Sophia told me over dinner, and we've learned what really matters. I raised my glass to that. To what really matters, I echoed, and in that moment, surrounded by people who value me for who I am rather than what I have or haven't achieved by society's narrow standards, I realized I hadn't just won a battle against snobbery and ingratitude. I'd won something far more valuable, the freedom to be authentically myself and to help others do the same. That's a victory worth celebrating. The end.